Welcome to Hot Flashbacks, where we boldly navigate the ups and downs and unexpected detours of our 30s and 40s while finally recalling how clueless we were in our 20s. I'm Molly Ward, your captain through this midlife roller coaster. Stick around for laughs, life lessons, and maybe a few I can't believe I survived that stories. Follow our journey on Instagram and Facebook at Hot Flashbacks. Make sure to like, follow, and share so I can keep making these episodes. Let's dive in. Like for us, it works because I'm really funny and you like to laugh. See, that's that.
That's a perfect combination.
Yes, that's the vibe, you know? So welcome to Hot Flashbacks. Thanks for coming back today. I don't know. I guess I'm just assuming that you listened last time. I'm talking to you. Not you, peeps. The you, the proverbial you, the person on the other end.
You are talking to me.
No, I'm not talking to you.
Okay.
Let's.
Oh.
I confused you already, huh? It's good. It's not hard to do.
Entirely
about how to build
No,
relationships. But welcome back to Hot Flashbacks. Friends as an adult. Peeps is joining us today. Go ahead, raise the roof like I know you want to do. No, I knew it. Tips. So I'm curious. Oh, we got a double fist. Do you have any situation instead of the old raise the roof?
I do have friends.
You really? Do you know that when you nod, people cannot hear you?
Super important. I've always been that way. I don't know if it's because I was an only child, so my parents did a really good job of like always letting me bring a friend, like if we went on vacation or if we were going to do something.
Before
and so I've always really highly valued those friendship relationships. I do have some friends.
Yeah, I know you do.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting, I think, is that our friendship is probably very different from the friendships you have where you live. Is that accurate?
Yeah, absolutely accurate. I mean, I think there's just something really different about friends that have known you for many seasons of your life. So through multiple decades, and our friendship would definitely fall into that category, right? From, 19 years old until now the beautiful age of 44 that I am. And so, that's really different than, yes, people I've met after I became a mother, people I met in just different stages of my life. Yeah, there's very different relationships.
Yeah. And I remember feeling like I had a lot of friends in my 20s, right? College was like a time of having so many friends and those friendships often serving different purposes, right? People you knew in class and you studied with, and people you hung out with, and people you just saw around campus or were in a sorority with or whatever it was, that I felt like I had a lot of friends. And throughout my life, I think I've somehow made a lot less friends. As you get older, I just think it becomes more difficult to develop that level of friendship. Do you feel like, do you have a group, or do you have do you have friends from different facets of your life?
Yeah, I definitely have. I don't really have a group of friends. And so I do feel jealous when I see people talking about that, oh, we're doing our annual this barbecue or that, or, and I'm like, oh, I've just never really had that where I had a group of people who all know each other and all interact together. Or when I see pictures of people here's me and my 20 friends that went to Mexico. I'm like, what? And all these people know each other? That's just nothing I've ever experienced. And I do think that gets harder the older you get to develop, especially if you move away from your hometown, or, I guess I see some people start to develop later, if their kids get involved in a really active sports team, that kind of becomes your group. But my kids aren't at that age yet. They're 6 and 9. So I'm just getting out of the little kid stage. And one of the things that I think has been really hard, there are these women in my life who I met through a mom's group or school or daycare, who I really, really care about and who I really, really, really like. And we spend a lot of time together, and I would do things for if they had a baby, I'd bring them a meal. If I consider them friends, but we became friends during this time of having little kids. And that was kind of the reason we were brought together. It has totally delayed us actually getting to know each other on a personal level. You know what I mean? I might have known these people for years, but they still don't know, maybe they don't know I'm an only child, or they don't know major things about my life, because all of our conversations are interrupted by children. Right. And we're just getting out of that phase where we can maybe have real life conversations, but that sort of personal, deep bonding, I think, is harder to come by, even with people I really like and care about.
Yeah. And part of that, I think, is one of the things that I learned, and I'll just credit Mel Robbins, both her podcast and her book, The Let Them Theory, which I feel like it's changing my life. I read it 2 weeks ago and I've been just making notes about things that I want to do differently. And the Let Them Theory is based on this idea that, not an idea, that the truth of the matter is that you can't control anybody else, right? You can't control what they're going to think about you no matter what you do. You could do the nicest thing in the world. Doesn't mean that they're going to like you. Doesn't even mean they're going to think you're nice. You could do the meanest thing to them and hoping that they'll never talk to you again. And maybe they call you the next day because they can't take a hint, right? As we just discussed. So you can't control the way anybody else thinks about you. And so it's based on this idea that all you can really do is control you and how you move through the world. So if your friend is in the hospital and you want to call them, then call them. But call them because you want to, not because you want them to reciprocate or because they called you one time, right? That like you just do what you need to do to feel like a good person and to feel good about your choices. And don't worry about what other folks are up to, just generally speaking. But I think the balance in that is like, and the reason I really wanted to read the book was because it's a really great idea is like when when you're in the hospital and your friend doesn't call you and you're really upset about it, and then you just say like, let them not call me. It's okay. And then let me recognize that maybe them not calling me is a sign that they don't care that much. It could also be a sign that they're just really busy and they forgot. Right. And so then I said like, how do you say let them without sounding like an asshole? Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be the person who doesn't care about anything or anybody and is just like, yeah, let them do whatever. I don't care. And so what's that balance between sort of ridding yourself of the expectations that other people may have of you and that society may have of you, but also still not being a jerk to people? This book really goes deep in multiple facets of your life and how to utilize this theory. But the friendship one for me was really interesting and spot on. And she refers to what she calls the great scattering, which for most people happens around the college time, either high school when you're 18 or college when you graduate. So you're, 22. And she says like all of a sudden you look around like you've been hanging out with all these people and you're best friends and you've got this whole group and you've got another group and you do all these things all the time and you see each other every day. And then you graduate and you get a job and you look around and you're like, where'd all my friends go? Like what happened? I had so many friends. Did you have that experience when you graduated? You went to graduate school, so maybe it was a little bit different, but all of a sudden everyone's gone.
Everyone's gone. I went to graduate school in a state. I moved to a nearby state, but I didn't know anyone there. So yeah, I looked around and there was no one, no friends to be found. And I had to sort of like start all over. And there's something about that that's really exciting and cool. And I would say it's one of the like coolest, best accomplishments of my life so far. And it taught me the most of like a life experience of having to do that. But yeah, I definitely had that experience. I also have the experience now of like thinking like, okay, in college, everything's so accelerated, right? Like you can become best friends with, it's kind of like going in the Love is Blind pods, right? Like,
can we just talk about Love is Blind? It's just such a great show. And it just came out yesterday, the new season. So
I know. And I watched 2 episodes of the new season.
Oh, you did? You watched last night?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a real go-getter.
I stayed up late so I could watch them. Yeah.
No, but you're right. There's a lot of significance to time spent. And so what she explains is that it takes about 200 hours with someone to develop what you might consider a close friendship. And 200 hours is a lot of time. And you're right, in the pods, right? I mean, they spend so much time with each other on Love is Blind, just the two of them, that the relationship accelerates pretty rapidly. And that is a similar experience to what you have as a child. I mean, when you're 6 years old and you see, little Sarah every day in your class for 8 hours, you put in 200 hours in, 3 weeks. And so, yeah, you're really close friends by the end of the month. Mm-hmm. And that does not happen as
college feels too. Yeah.
Yeah. That does not happen as an adult. The amount of time needed.
Yeah. Like, and back to my example, but like my mom's group, moms who I said, I really care about, I would happily be closer friends with. Right. When you're seeing each other once a month or once every other month for an hour, and that hour is interrupted by kids coming in and asking everybody questions, like it just takes that much longer to get to know someone, and you have just a lot more priorities pulling you different directions. So I think a lot of the key, to answer the very original question, one of the keys I think to adult friendships is just being patient and knowing that it's going to take a lot longer to get there. And also, like, you don't want it to not. You know, we've all been in those situations where someone was like overly familiar, all of a sudden thought they were your best friend, or all of a sudden was like, that's weird and strange. And I don't like that in a friend. Like, I want them to be okay with taking the time to actually get to know each other.
So you're not a friend hoochie.
No, I am not a friend hoochie.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah. I don't think people say hoochie anymore. That feels like a term from the 90s I just pulled out.
Yeah.
Hoochie mama. You remember? I'm going to bring that back. I kind of like it. Oh, were you going to sing just now? You were going to sing.
Yeah, I did sing. You missed it. I did.
Go ahead. Drop it.
I said, hood rat, hoochie mama.
Ain't nothing but a hoochie mama. Okay. Well, your point is about having patience and that being sort of one of the keys is wrong, actually. So.
Look at that. Okay.
Okay. So terrible advice, but no, you're not wrong there, but she discusses three pillars necessary to build adult friendships. And when you think about the great scattering, the sort of, I left high school or I left college and everybody just sort of went their own way and how lonely that can feel. She references that happens multiple times throughout your life, that the scattering is going to occur throughout your life and that you have to be okay with the idea that you're going to get up and move to Ohio. Actually, don't be okay with that idea. Ohio's terrible. You don't want to live there. But you have to be okay with the idea that your friends are going to scatter sometimes, and especially at different periods of life. So then you left college and now you're all living single and you develop some new friends at work and you meet some other single people and you guys are friends. And then people start to do what? Well, they start to get married or they start to date. And all of a sudden you know, people are getting married and moving in with their boyfriends or girlfriends and moving out. And you're like, dang, now where did everybody go again? You know, and this scattering sort of occurs throughout your life. And so it's really helpful to think about that's normal. It's very normal for that to happen and for you to have to start over, make new friends now, find a new group. And that can be challenging and difficult. The pillars of friendship that she talks about, the three things that are necessary to build close adult friendships. You want to give it a shot? What do you think? There's three things.
I don't want to give it a shot.
Yeah.
I guess it's not patience because that was wrong.
It's not patience. It's not. So the first one is fairly obvious, and it's proximity. You need to be physically close to someone to build a close friendship. Now, you and I have a close friendship, but we already developed the close friendship when we were in proximity. So that's different, right? We're not talking about maintaining friendships. We're talking about starting and developing friendships.
Yeah. And honestly, I think about this all the time when I think about the remote work debate, because I worked in an office for a really long time and I'm coming up on 19 years, like at the same organization, you know, different roles, different departments. But, and when I had the great opportunity, you know, to be in the office, I made really great relationships. And then when our office closed after COVID, I love being able to work remotely. For me, as a mother of young kids, it's easier to be able to quick throw in a load of laundry, start the dinner, you know, before everyone gets home. Like, it makes my life and my work-life balance a lot easier. But I often think about young people just starting out and starting a job remotely and how much harder that must be to build those relationships with your coworkers. And I feel, although on one hand, I'm a huge proponent of work from home. I think if the job can get done from home, why not? But I also think like, oh, I feel kind of like sad that, you know, people who are just graduating from college aren't going to have that experience that I had of being new in the workforce, happy hours, baby shower, you know, all those things that we got to do as more of a community. And so I think that proximity is huge.
Yeah. And I mean, really, if you think about it, there are probably times in your life when you've realized that you are work friends with someone and then they get a new job and you talk for a little bit and that's it. Your friendship is over. You're no longer friends. And I call these, I affectionately use the term convenience friends, right? People that like you really do like and connect with and you're friends with, but you also see them all the time, which makes it really easy to develop that friendship and maintain that friendship. And all of a sudden, when that proximity doesn't exist anymore, that relationship kind of goes to the wayside. And I've always felt really sad about that. Like, I was such good friends with someone and then they got a new job and now we barely see each other. But the book made me feel a lot better because she's like, but that's okay. It doesn't mean you're not friends. Like, it doesn't mean that you're not friends anymore, it's just that one thing, that proximity is so necessary that when it doesn't exist, it's just harder to be close friends with someone. And it doesn't mean you don't like each other. It doesn't mean you didn't have a real friendship. You did have a real friendship. Because I always felt like, oh man, I guess we were just friends because we worked together. But no, we were friends and we worked together.
That's a valid reason.
Yeah. And that the working together was sort of holding you together. And that makes a lot of sense because there's only so many hours in a day. And if I can see my friend for 1 or 2 hours a day during work, then I don't have to have 1 or 2 hours a day free time outside of work to hang out with them. And you see them every day. So that proximity also then leads to time, right? You're seeing them often.
Is time another pillar?
No.
Oh, shoot. You're really striking out on these. I didn't know there was going to be a quiz, but I'm mad about it.
I know. I'm sorry. I think, proximity is one of those things that just like, once you're closer to someone physically, it's just so much easier to spend time together. And that's why so many people become friends with people they work with. I mean, you just get to know them better. And I feel like after I read the book, I felt, oh gosh, I feel so much better about past relationships where I don't really speak to those people anymore. Like I have a lot of friends from Tulane that, I haven't lived in New Orleans in like 9 years, and it's been 9 years since I left Tulane. And there are a lot of friendships that I had there that I felt were pretty strong that I would say I don't have anymore with those people. But then I realized after reading this that I'm like, no, I'm still friends with those people. We just don't talk anymore. And that doesn't mean we're not friends. And that was like a brain kind of like switch for me to recognize that just because I don't talk to someone every day doesn't mean we're not still friends, that we were friends for 8 years and then a scattering happened, right? And we just don't talk as much as we used to. And so I, even on this show, have said like, I have called some of my friends that I haven't spoken to in a long time, and we picked up right where we left off because we're still friends. And that actually kind of made my heart feel good.
Yeah, I've like loved that for you because, well, I'm a very loyal listener to the Hot Flashbacks podcast. It's my favorite podcast. And even though you would assume maybe because I am such a good friend of yours, I would have some sort of insider info about what was happening in the podcast. I do not. So whenever I hit play on Wednesday mornings, I'm just learning who the guest is and all of that. And I have like loved hearing you like reconnect with people. Like that's such a fun feeling when you, again, I think it's all about that, like this web of community that, can go the distance and like those people are there. Or like if you were going to be in New Orleans, like you would see those people. Your day-to-day relationship changes, but that doesn't mean that person wasn't really important to you. And so anyways, I loved the podcast be a catalyst for you reconnecting with folks. I think that's really cool. And that's one thing I love about like social media. I know there's lots of complaints about it. There's lots of bad things, but I just love that like I can post something and then people who I went to high school with or college will like reach out to me and be like, hey, I relate to that. Or and it's really cool to see like those relationships you built are still meaningful.
Yeah. I feel like I just feel so validated and being like, we're still friends. Like I don't talk to them as much as they don't talk to me, but gosh, life is busy and there's only so many hours in the day. And we spent, Jenna and I spent 8 years being friends. And then the scattering happened and I scattered and she has since also scattered. And our lives are very different, but when we reconnect, we're still friends. Like it's still there. Our friendship still exists. We still know each other. I would still consider her a close friend. I don't want to go on a limb, but it made me feel so much better about so many friendships that I've had in my life where I feel like I've lost those people. I didn't really lose them. And so anyway, that was a really important, like, I guess, moment of clarity for me and sort of, So the first pillar is proximity, and it's the most important really when it comes to developing adult friendships. So if you want to make new friends, or you really want to focus on developing close friendships with people that you kind of know, proximity is going to be really important. The second pillar is probably obvious, and that is, and I say it's obvious even though you didn't guess it yet, and that is and that is energy. This idea that you have to just vibe, right? That you're not going to develop a close friendship with someone if your energy is off, if you're not connecting, if you don't really get each other. If, like, for us, it works because I'm really funny and you like to laugh. See, that's that.
That's a perfect combination.
Yes, that's the vibe, you know? So yeah, it seems very obvious, but you got to have energy with the person. And sometimes you'll meet people at work and you'll kind of be work friends a little bit. And then you're like, yeah, this isn't, I'm happy to talk to this person in meetings and stuff, but they're just not my vibe, right? We don't share an energy. And so, and the third pillar, I have ADD. I don't remember. Wait, hold on. What's the third pillar, P?
I don't know, but let me talk about energy for a minute.
Oh yeah, no, you take right over. This be your show, girl.
Yeah,
you do it.
Yeah, well, you think of it, yeah.
Okay.
I think that's really described as energy, but that makes total sense because I think I've definitely had that situation where I met someone and I thought, okay, like we're similar life circumstances, similar age, everything kind of lines up. Like you feel like you should be able to make a friend with that person, and then you start to, and then like a little ways in, you're like, wait, this isn't going to work. Like, there's nothing wrong with them. They didn't do anything to make me mad. But I think sometimes people get in that situation and they think, oh, what did I do? Look, I screwed up another friendship. And it's like, no. You have to take a little time to get to know someone before you can decide if it is going to be a friendship. So it's just hard because sometimes people get to that point at different times in the relationship, where maybe you're in that situation and the person's like, oh, this is going great. And you're just discovering that, like, oh, the energy isn't there. And that can make for some kind of awkward things.
Yeah. Or like I've been in a situation where I've met somebody at a club, not like a club, like a, it's not like that. Like like
an organization.
Yeah.
I really thought you meant like a club. I was like, what are you doing at a club?
I don't go to clubs anymore. Okay. I don't know if they let me in. I think I'm too old.
No. Well, also I think there's like a dress code and I refuse to wear anything but tennis shoes. So I'm definitely never going to a club again.
Yeah, if the dress code doesn't include elastic, then I'm out. So, and plus, you have those kind of orthopedic shoes. That's, I think, a different club of people. I
have to wear shoes that my custom orthotics will fit in, and that's mostly just tennies. So.
Life. I love that you said tennies. Also, just affirmative that you're from the Midwest and you are somebody's mom. So,
athletic shoes.
Tennies, adorable. So yeah, you met someone and you're like, oh, we have all these things in common, right? Like I have a cat and they have a cat. And then like I live in the suburbs and they live in the suburbs and we both went to college and we're both social workers. And so it feels like it should be a friendship, but then you spend some time with them and the energy's not there. It's not right. You're just kind of like, like probably like when you met me and you were like, wow, she's really funny and nice. This is really good energy. And I was like,
Those are not the things I thought when I met you.
What? Get out of town.
I mean,
come on. No, I don't know. Disclose. I don't know that we've ever discussed your first impression of me at 18-year-old Molly. Go ahead. Drop it.
Well, I mean, we lived next door to each other for like a semester before we became friends.
Across the hall, but okay.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, in that time, well, I didn't really have an impression of you, but I didn't think you were a big fan of me.
Well, that was accurate.
Yeah, exactly.
You really kind of like wiggled your way into my heart.
I know.
No, well, because the first 6 months, I couldn't really get to know you because you were crying. So
and in my bed.
And in bed. So I rarely saw you. It was the situation. Oh gosh. Okay. So energy is the thing, right? So we've got people who are physically close to us who we can see frequently, right? They don't live an hour away. We've got energy, like we have good vibes. And the third one is, and you kind of touched on this earlier when you were talking about, well, I don't remember what you're talking about because I wasn't listening, but you said something that I felt was relevant. And that is stage of life is really important when you're talking about your friends. that, you know, your mom friends. And so that's a thing, right? Like a stage of life doesn't even just mean age, because stage of life could be totally different. Because if you're 21 and have two or three kids and are married and a stay-at-home mom, you're probably not going to be friends with someone who
That's
is
only in Utah, Molly.
Oh, my bad. Regional stereotype. So it's harder to be friends with somebody who's, you know, say 24 and in college and living on their own, because you guys are living two very different lives. Your life stages are just different. You might be able to be friends with someone who's 30 and has three kids. Even though you have different ages, you are going through similar stages of life. And that is, I think, one of the harder things about adult friendships can be that sometimes those stages change. And when those stages change, that is also where sometimes you feel like you lose friends. So, you know, your friend gets married and has kids at 28 and you're still living your single life. And all of a sudden it's like, I don't feel like we're really friends anymore because, you know, she's busy with her kids and it's just what it is. And it doesn't mean that you're not friends and it doesn't mean you're not a priority for her. But in that stage of your life, it can be difficult to maintain close friendships with people who are in totally different stages of life.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that there's a difference between, I think it's a lot easier to maintain those friendships if when you originally met and first bonded, you were in the same stage of life and then it changed. I think then you can make a more conscious effort to say like, hey, I know our paths are kind of going different ways, but we're going to really make sure that we maintain this. I think that's a lot easier. I think it's pretty difficult to start a friendship with someone in a drastically different stage of life. That's even more tricky.
So let's try to stay on topic here. I see that you're digressing. Yeah, that is a key point because we're talking about developing close friendships, right?
Yeah.
You and I have not had proximity in 20 years.
Right.
And we're still friends, right? We have not been in the same state in 20 years and we're still friends. But that close friendship was developed when we had proximity, energy, and the very same stage of life, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
And if you think about your childhood friendships, they have all of that all the time. I mean, when you're 8, everybody's in the same stage of life as you. And when you're 8 and on the soccer team, then all the kids that are 8 and on the soccer team are just like you. They're physically close to you. You are close to one another. And so that your whole life and society has sort of set you up to have all of these friends, even college, right? And then you leave and it's very different out there to make new friends as an adult because those things are not as easy to come by. It is not as easy to be close to someone who you also have good energy with, who you're also in the same stage of life with. And so I thought for me, that was really eye-opening in recognizing who I could be developing friendships with.
Yeah. So in addition to patience, which I still stand by is an important piece, I will say that it takes a lot more effort, right? So to find those things, you have to really be taking much more like intentional initiative. They're not just going to stumble by on the way to the bathroom from the dorm room. Although I guess that doesn't happen anymore because people live in these beautiful suites and we lived in like a concrete jail. But so 2 things came to mind. There is this group of people, and I keep seeing it posted on like our local social media, that it's a group of shy people who are meeting every whatever Wednesday evening at this coffee shop to get together. And they're like posting the photo and there's like 15 of them and they're like, come out and join us, you know. And I just think that is such a beautiful thing because these people are going way out of their comfort zone, looking for that sense of community. And I think it's great. And but not everyone values friendship enough to elevate it to that much intentionality in their life. And I think that that's really, really tricky. I mean, there's all this data that shows that like having good friends is just as good for your health as like quitting smoking. Like it's genuinely for your physical health. You need friendships. We need these connections. And so I just give huge props to that group of shy people who's like purposely going out of their way to create that for themselves because it's not as easy as you get older. And I'm not shy. I didn't want to show up. I'm like, I'll be your friend.
Yeah. And I mean, that is discussed a lot as well in the book is that you do have to put yourself out there. I mean, and Again, if we go back to sort of the book being about the let them theory, is this idea that when you see someone in a coffee shop every Monday, because you go there to remote work for a few hours every Monday morning and get some stuff done, and you see someone else there and you think to yourself, okay, well, they look like they're my age. They obviously have a job. They're working as well. So, maybe you strike up a conversation. Maybe you kind of chat with them here and there over the weeks. That eventually, like, you just need to get out of your comfort zone and ask them to hang out. And that everybody wants friends. So don't, like, it's not. And I always think it's weird. Like, it feels like you're asking someone on a date, It's kind of like,
yeah.
Oh, hey, did you want to, Brenda, do you want to grab a coffee with me sometime? Like, and you feel like nervous but it's really, you just have to, because if you sit around and wait for them to do it, you may never develop a friendship, or you may never know that you didn't want a friendship, and that you really have to be willing to do that and just take that step.
I have such a good story about this that I'm going to now share.
Yeah, please. Let me just pass the mic over to you. Go ahead. Go ahead, P.
So about 6 years ago, I was at the park with my kids. I had an infant. So I guess it was closer to 7 years ago. I had an infant and a 2.5-year-old. We ran into this other family. Our kids really played well together. It was really great. They were like, hey, we live right there. And I was like, oh, we live right there too. And she showed me exactly which house it was. You could see her house from the park. So I remember thinking afterwards, I was just kidding myself and so mad at myself for not asking for her phone number and saying like, hey, we should meet at the park another time, or like we should get together, because we really, really clicked. And I remember asking you and a couple of our other friends from college, like we had like a group chat, and I was like, what if I went and left her a note with my phone number? Because I know where she lives. And you guys were like, do not do that. That is creepy. Don't go to her house.
That is over the line.
Yeah. So I didn't. I took your advice. And then a few weeks later, I saw her walking into the YMCA for swim lessons with her son. And I was taking my sons to swimming. And so, we said hi, and then we went about our swimming. And then after my kids were done, I went in the locker room and I got my phone, and I came and I sat down next to her, and I was like, hey, I just went and grabbed my phone so I could get your phone number. I think it would be really fun if we could get together. And she was like, oh, that'd be great. I'm thinking we're starting this thing so our kids can play together. Turns out she worked right across the street from me. So her and I started going for walks at lunchtime, and we became really good friends. And then she has a sister who also lives in the neighborhood. Long story short, almost 7 years later, we just spent Thanksgiving with their family. I mean, that's all, like, we are now very close friends. Yeah. And I know her mother, you know what I mean? Like, I know their whole family. Our kids play together. We run into them at the library all the time. Like, and it's helped me feel like, wow, this neighborhood and this community is really special. And so I think, never to be shy to like take that step. And I'm just lucky I got that second chance when I chickened out at the park, that I got to see her again later.
Yeah. I don't think you're supposed to have your cell phone in the locker room, by the way.
Okay.
Isn't that I feel like that's not legal. Is it legal?
Well, you can't take pictures in the locker room.
Oh,
and you can't take your phone out. But I had it like
you took your phone out in the locker room.
No,
I'm calling the YMCA. No, I'm calling the YMCA.
Okay, well, I'm not
They're going to suspend your membership. Okay. Yeah, you do. And she sort of talks about just being able to say, like, if you're friends with someone at work and you're enjoying getting to know them, just ask them to do something. And if they say no, let them. It's okay. Like, maybe they're not in the space to be friends with you. Maybe they don't like you. That's okay. Let them do that, and let me know that I put myself out there and I can focus my energy elsewhere. And it does require, I think, a little bit of confidence. I have spent, I want to say, probably the last year thinking a lot about my friendships here where I live. And I'm trying to focus more on developing my friendships. I think I didn't really put a lot of stock into it. Life got busy and I wasn't really making it a priority. And I kind of realized that like I missed having people, and I knew people, I had friends, we just weren't doing anything. I was like, I was seeing them at work, or I was seeing them at roller derby practice, or I was seeing them at the gym, but I really wanted to spend more time with my friends. Mel Robbins says it takes, as an adult, about a year to develop a close friendship. So it's not going to happen overnight. It takes time. As you said, you have to have patience. But it takes about a year to go from being sort of acquaintances to being close friends. And that's so different than it was when you were 20. I mean, you could you could go from being acquaintances to being best friends in a month, because you were just spending so much time with these people.
One late night at the bar and you're best friends.
Yeah, exactly. You're telling everyone you're best friends, but yeah, I mean, and so it's wild to think that it takes a year. And when I reflect on where I am now compared to where I was a year ago, I do feel like I've put more effort in and I have more friends now than I did a year ago. Mostly that my friendships are stronger. It's still the same people for the most part, but I have gotten closer to a lot of them and I spend more time doing things with them and hanging out and, hiking or going to get coffee or whatever. And I'm really trying to prioritize that so that I have that balance in my life. And it's been really nice. And it wasn't as hard as I thought. It was just, it felt so intimidating, but sometimes you just gotta put yourself out there and be like, hey, do you want to go to lunch? Like, let's go grab lunch. And also like that kind of thing kind of makes someone's day a lot of the time, you
for sure.
Just as you want to like hang out with someone, but you're too nervous to say it or do it. You ask them and then they're like, yeah, I'd love to grab lunch. I mean, I've had that experience too, where someone's like sent me an email and was like, hey, do you want to, grab lunch sometime this week? And I'm like, oh, Lord, they love me. I feel so good. And it feels good. Yeah. So popular. Okay.
Sorry.
You and I are not on a phone conversation. We're actually on a show. You can't just break out into musical. Oh, I won't let Ariana Grande hear that version of the song that you just sang because, yeah, that's what editing is for. Yeah, and so just putting in the time and just getting out there, and I feel like it's made a world of difference for me and feeling like I have close friendships. As you said, it's necessary to have close friendships. And as an adult, sometimes it feels really difficult and overwhelming. Or sometimes you have a scattering, like let's say, for you, let's say your son plays soccer and you're on this soccer league and you get to know all the parents and all the parents have 8-year-olds who play soccer and you see them every weekend and then you start developing a friendship with them. And then you have this group of adult friends, but then your son stops playing soccer. He doesn't like it anymore. And you're not going to see these people anymore. That's a scattering. And now all of a sudden you don't have those pillars of friendship with those people. You probably got to put some work into building close friendships with other people. And it's okay that your whole life is a series of that sort of building of friendships and then changing of time and situation.
Yeah, we're sort of preparing for one of those scatterings now. My oldest son goes to this like very special, unique, beautiful school that's just like this little beautiful like community. And he went to a daycare that was like loosely connected to it. So he's known a lot of these kids since he was a baby, and it only goes till 5th grade. Well, his little brother is in a different school district, and he all week has been talking about how he wants to go to the same school as his brother. And he would like to start 4th grade there, when our plan was that he would finish 5th grade and start 6th grade there. And I think, he's asking to do this. He says he knows he'd have to make new friends. He wants to make new friends. He's ready to do that. And, I probably logistically it is easier to make new friends in 5th grade versus 6th grade. So it would be a better move. And if he wants to do it, like, let's do it when he's excited about it. So we're probably going to be leaving this like very special to me community where I know all the parents, we like there's one parent that hosts, a summer lake camping weekend for all the families in the class. And like, it's just like really magical and special. And, we're going to be like, not that those people still won't be people I have relationships with, but we're going to be walking away from that community, and it will be a scattering, and it's going to be really difficult. And I said, I think the decision is basically made. It's just now that like mom has to grieve. I'm the only one that's like feeling very sensitive about it, and it's tough. But I feel lucky that in this situation, I have the opportunity to sort of grieve it and prepare for it. It's not just going to happen. It's not like he's, coming home and saying, I quit soccer today. It's like I have a whole semester to prepare, but it's going to be weird.
Yeah. And that's not to say that you won't be friends with any of those people ever again, because some of them you are already, you have built a close friendship with. And so then the pillars needed,
it's already established,
aren't as necessary. It's already established. You had proximity, you had energy, you had all these things. You were able to develop a close friendship, and now you're going to maintain friendships with some of them. And I think that having that kind of community like you had can be kind of rare as an adult. And now you're going to have maybe a new one, right? And maybe it's going to take more time for you to develop friendships with these people. And maybe only one of them will end up being a close friend. But it feels good to know that everybody goes through these stages, that you're feeling sort of, as you described, grief about all of these things changing and you needing to sort of start over in some ways with developing friendships, but that your whole life is going to be that, which is, I don't say to sound pessimistic, I guess.
No, it is actually, it's actually sort of nice to realize that, like you said, because it's like, okay, these are the same cycles and same phases that everyone's going through.
Yeah.
This isn't a unique loss. If I didn't lose it this year, I would have lost it in 2 years, so it's going to happen. But that is really comforting, actually.
Yeah. And I think for me, the most comfort I got from the book was in knowing that everybody needs friendship and everybody wants it. So don't be nervous to put yourself out there to ask somebody to hang out. And, if let's say, you ask someone to do something and they kind of put you off a few times and never actually commit to doing it, then that's okay. Let them, you put in the effort when you want to put in the effort because it's important to you. And if they don't reciprocate over time, eventually you're not going to want to put the effort in anymore. And that's okay too.
You know what I'm going to say?
What?
I made an inappropriate hand gesture with my middle finger.
Okay.
I was feeling really bold for a minute, but now I feel sort of shy.
Yeah, well, it's very bold to do physical gestures on a podcast that doesn't have video. So yeah, good for you. You really shone there.
Well, if you don't want to be my friend at that point, then, kind of screw you. That's what I say.
Yeah.
They're lost, man. They're lost.
Yeah. That was one of the eye openers for me, was this idea that you put out what you want to put out, and what you get back is yours to do what you want with it. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. When you ask someone to hang out with you multiple times and they blow you off multiple times, then decide what you want to do with that. You can keep asking them to hang out because you want to and you'd really like to see them. You can compartmentalize that as they don't like me or I'm not important to them. But the reality is, most of the time, that it has nothing to do with you that they're blowing you off or that they can't make time for you. It has everything to do with other things that are going on in their life that just don't allow for it and are more of a priority than you are. And that's okay. It's not personal. And that's taken a minute for me to digest.
Well, and I think also it doesn't help that, like, society, especially for women, and that's mostly who I'm making friendships with, is other women, is like, nobody, this idea that, like, friendship is legitimately important to your life is sort of like a new thing, I think, that people are talking about. And, like, the data seems sort of new. And, like, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of women have been pressured in, like, oh, your family has to come first. Oh, your spouse has to come first. Or, I mean, all those things are important. But I think sometimes it's just that, like, if you're asking someone and they're saying no, it's like they haven't realized what they're missing in terms of other, female friendships or other, why friendship is so important.
Yeah. I'm really glad we're friends, by the way.
I'm also really glad we're friends.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the best part of my day, knowing that I'm your friend.
Me, every night when you lay down and you're like, oh, just so glad Molly's my friend.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. That doesn't happen to me, but I can get where you're coming from there. It's been kind of mind-blowing for me to look back on a lot of the friendships I've developed over my life and understand how I developed them and why, and also what happened to them. Because I even recently had an experience where a close friend of mine, someone I consider a close friend, doesn't really talk to me anymore. And I kind of had that grieving moment that you discussed a little bit, and that, like, I'm really sad that we're not really friends anymore. But then I realized that it's not that we're not friends. This person moved and is developing new friendships and new hobbies in a new place with new people, and has been there now about 1.5 years. And so that sits right with when they probably are starting to develop new close friends. And I just don't fit into that anymore. And that's okay. And it made me feel a lot better about it. Like, it's just what it is. Our stage of life has changed and the proximity changed. And that made it more difficult to maintain our close friendship. But that doesn't mean that we're not still friends. That doesn't mean that this person hates me or that I don't like them. And that made me feel better that like I probably could pick up the phone and call them right now and we would be just fine. But right now at this current stage in our lives, we're just not able to make those connections because we don't have the proximity to each other. It just really helped me to think about it that way and know that my friendships that don't exist anymore in the same sense they used to are still there. And I feel like more whole some way. Like somehow I feel like, oh, I do have a lot of friends. Like just because I don't speak to them all the time doesn't mean that we're not friends. And that made me feel a lot better. I don't like the idea of losing friends, you know?
No, because we can't help as people who are like self-involved being like, what did I do? It's about me. It's about me. And like you said, 90% of the time it has nothing to do with you, right? It's someone's stage of life. It's something's changed. They can't prioritize it. They're overwhelmed with something else. They have a new job. They have a new this. It's difficult. And I think especially nowadays, we need to be giving people as much grace as possible and also just taking that off of ourselves. Like, it's not about you.
Yeah, I think taking it off of myself has been a huge help in saying like, we don't speak anymore. I'm not mad at them. I didn't do anything, so they're probably not mad at me. We just don't speak, and that's okay. We still care about each other. And I'm sure if we ran into each other in the street, we would chat it up and be fine. So I feel good about that. And I do think that adult friendships are very important and they do change over your lifetime. And it's really reassuring to know that it's normal for it to change and that it's probably going to change again. And I feel more prepared now to know that when the next scattering happens, I'll know exactly what it is and exactly how to manage it and feel emotionally prepared to know that I need to put myself out there and make friends and it's all going to be okay. Because sometimes as an adult, it can feel like I'm never going to have friends again.
Yeah, it's scary. But hopefully also your listeners will now feel a little peace about that too. If they're like coming up on a life change or going to be moving or changing jobs or, I mean, I'm hoping to retire soon. And you know.
That sounds nice. What are you doing that I'm not?
Just kidding.
Good God. Oh, Lord. Well, thanks for spending time with me today and spending time with our listeners. If you learned something from this episode or you enjoyed it or want to pass it on to a friend and use it as a way to reconnect with someone you haven't talked to in a while, make sure you go ahead and share this out. Peeps, thanks for making another appearance here. It's always good to chat with you. And I appreciate you and your energy and our lack of proximity a lot.
I appreciate you too. And this was really fun talking about friendships because it made me realize and remember once again how lucky I am to have such amazing friends. And now I'm going to give them each a shout out. Just kidding.
Oh my God. Okay. I was going to say, this is not going the way that I wanted it to. I'm just going to put a little note there. Cut what Peeps said. Okay. That's all we got. This is Hot Flashbacks. We're out. Want more? We're on all the major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Just search for Hot Flashbacks and subscribe.